corporate sponsors and donors.
The label bias to challenge whatever they don't like, whatever truth they don't like.
Target audience for media.
Bias news. I do think it exists. I think that it's gotten worse lately, but it's definitely a reality. So I think that bias news exists and that news networks have corporate sponsors and donors that basically they have to play nice with. And there are certain people like, Jeff Bezos who owns the Washington Post, or Rupert Murdoch with all of his publications that basically want to promote and say certain things that make their shareholders happy.
What is my opinion on biased news? I think we need to make a distinction between local news and national news. On the one hand, I think that local news issues tend to be less partisan, and so therefore less susceptible to bias. On the other hand, we have a situation in our country where increasingly local television affiliates are being bought up by a single corporation, Sinclair News, and the owner of that company has really strong conservative bias, and that owner has forced stations to run editorials, opinion pieces that are really strongly biased on the subject of national news, specifically in support of President Trump and other sort of conservative agenda issues. At the national level, I think that bias has become something that people claim when they don't like what is being said, and there's a lot of challenging of facts going on in the current news landscape, and the challenging of facts and the spread of disinformation and fake news has created an environment where people can use the label bias to challenge whatever they don't like, whatever truth they don't like, regardless of whether there's any actual bias in the sense of editorializing or opinion or spin. So for example, a politician who here's a news report that is just objectively true, but that they don't like, is very likely to challenge it as being biased in some way. The point is not necessarily to prove that it's biased. The point is to create a permission structure for the ideological followers of that politician to be able to dismiss that news as unreliable or outright untrue. I disagree with the premise to a certain extent. I don't think that most networks do it. The one network that most often gets identified as being biased, and I think is biased, is Fox News. And that's a really unique case, both unique in terms of the current news landscape and unique in terms of the history of our country, insofar as Fox News has a direct line to the president, literally a direct line, in that we know that he talks frequently on the phone with some of the prominent people at Fox News like Hannity, but also a direct line in the sense that we know from tweeting patterns and the information that shows up in the president's tweets, and comparing it to what is on Fox News, that he watches quite a bit of Fox News, and that he, to a certain extent, it drives what the president's talking about, and it drives the president's agenda. So one problem that I would love to see news organizations try to deal with is that I think the problem has been not bias itself, but the way that claims of bias have caused newsmakers to shift further to one side in order to try to give the appearance of balance or objectivity.
A lot of news stations can be biased because they have a target audience, and a lot of the time it has nothing to do with the news, but it has to do with the numbers that are being fed and their ratings. I am not personally affected by biased news. I mean, let me rephrase that. Biased news is around. I try to be aware as much as I can and expand my awareness with looking into multiple sources and multiple media resources. But I mean, I'm affected by it just as other people are, but I really try to go outside my box and not allow one perspective to influence my opinion. What I think news networks can do to change the bias that tends to happen is to be able to outsource. So don't think about ratings necessarily or your target audience, but expand. And I mean, we have like live streaming. Why can't we kind of get people talking from all different parts of the country, and that's our news. You're just getting a live update of what's really happening, and that's authentic news, not someone's perspective on what's happening and only showing one version in one small area. Like a protest can be peaceful, but then one news source can just show a car that backfired or something and then instigate, oh, it's violent, protest is bad. But it was actually for a good cause. So it's just kind of being aware of that people have biases, there's target audiences, and to not allow that to fool you.